You might think that with the nerf of Consecration that the only good Titan build in Destiny 2 is now dead, but with a new king to take Consecration's throne, that couldn't be further from the truth. Titan has always been the least played class in Destiny 2, but that is all about to change with this new build that arguably puts them at the top of the build food chain. Why? Well, because you've got infinite orb generating, amplifying, healing, nuclear bomb scale melee storms firing off in all directions every second, along with some of the best team-wide boss DPS in the entire game. It's amazing for dungeons, raids, Grandmaster Nightfalls, team content, and solo content. And along with this build comes an emblem giveaway raffle that you can enter simply by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment down below, along with another emblem being given away whose code is hidden somewhere in this video. If you're someone who finds themselves in the anti-exotic class item camp, then this build couldn't be a better fit for you, as it doesn't rely on any exotic class item or even the prismatic subclass as a whole. Everything we need for this incredible build resides simply in the newly buffed exotic Titan helmet, the insurmountable Skullfort, where on powered melee kills you fully refund your melee ability and begin health regeneration. Now there's a bit more to the insurmountable Skullfort, but we're going to save that until after we talk about the other core components of our kit, like the very melee ability we will be using to proc the melee refunds and health regeneration of ISF. That melee ability is the Thunderclap, a chargeable melee attack whose range and damage are increased the longer it's charged, also granting 80% damage resistance during the charge and for a short period of time after cast. By simply combining this melee ability with the ISF exotic helmet, you can go on one-shotting invincible room nuking sprees by simply pressing only your melee button. It is worth noting though that this build, and specifically this melee ability, benefits significantly from a specific keybind or button setup. In Destiny, your melee button is bound to auto melee by default, which unfortunately, if close enough to an enemy that your basic melee ability would connect, will prioritize usage of your basic melee over that of your powered melee ability. To circumvent this and tell the game to always use our powered melee ability if it is available no matter what, you'll want to set your melee button or keybind to both the charged melee and uncharged melee options, resulting in the exact melee prioritization behavior that we are looking for with this build. And even with this setup, if there is ever a situation where you want to use your normal melee over your powered melee, despite it being fully charged, you can simply either shoot your gun immediately before meleeing, forcing your uncharged melee for whatever reason, or hop in the air before meleeing, prioritizing your basic melee as Thunderclap cannot be used while airborne. Pairing beautifully with what we currently have is our first aspect, Knockout, which first and foremost rewards us with the amplified buff upon scoring any melee final blow, granting us a bonus 15% damage resistance and makes enemies less accurate when trying to hit us. Furthermore, when breaking an enemy's shield or dealing damage to an enemy below 30% HP, you receive the Knockout buff, increasing all basic melee damage by 100%, all charged melee damage by 50%, your lunge distance to 5.5 meters, and empowering all basic melee attacks with arc energy. Not only does this arc empowerment on basic melee attacks identify them as powered melee attacks, activating any mod that activates on a powered melee final blow, but it also segues us to the second portion of our insurmountable Skullfort exotic helmet perk description. Remember when I said that you fully refund your powered melee when getting a kill with it? Well, what if you accidentally mess up and don't land a final blow on the target, or just whiff entirely? Well, with the new buffs to IFS, that's no problem, as simply landing melee hits on enemies will grant you chunks of powered melee energy, with basic melee attacks granting a little bit, knockout arc empowered basic melee attacks granting a bit more, and a powered melee hit granting even more. With this change, even if you do mess up your melee ability, it's extremely easy to get it back and very safe as well, considering that final blows with any melee, powered, arc empowered, or basic, immediately restores a chunk of HP through the knockout aspect. But you might be thinking that while all of this invincible melee one-shotting action is great and all, what about team play, Grandmaster Nightfalls, raid boss damage, and nuking things from far away? Well, that is where we arrive at our second aspect for this build, the brand new Storm's Keep, which grants 4 stacks of Bolt Charge on class ability activation in conjunction with a stack of Bolt Charge every 0.6 seconds while behind said barricade. Now, Bolt Charge, a brand new arc buff, is a bit more complicated than it might seem at face value, so let's take a really close look at it. Anytime you're in possession of at least 1 stack of Bolt Charge, consecutive instances of damage on enemies will increment your stack counter, also granting 2.5% melee ability energy per Bolt Charge stack gained, another way to refund your melee ability should you misuse and lose it. Upon reaching the maximum 10 stacks of Bolt Charge, you can then unleash an AoE lightning strike upon scoring an ability hit or dealing unpowered melee damage. What's really cool about this build though is that through the Storm's Keep aspect, while behind your Storm's Keep barricade, you can also discharge a fully stacked Bolt Charge lightning strike simply with weapon damage, meaning that just by mag dumping behind a Storm's Keep barricade, you will be launching lightning strike after lightning strike after lightning strike. It's for this reason that it should be obvious that we are slotting in Rally Barricade for the class ability of this build due to its increased weapon reload speed, lower base cooldown, and its form factor making it very easy to shoot over while still remaining behind it to accrue stacks of Bolt Charge. To round out our core subclass abilities, we'll also be utilizing the Pulse Grenade for its generous area denial and AoE damage, as well as Thunder Crash for obvious reasons. A quick little pointer with Thunder Crash as well is that you can hop into your inventory and briefly swap your IFS for the Courius of the Falling Star exotic chest piece right before casting for some extra damage on your Thunder Crash, then swapping back to the IFS for your core close range infinite melee gameplay loop immediately after landing. Alongside this suite of abilities and aspects, we'll also be installing 4 fragments to take things to the next level, the first of which protects us at close range in the Spark of Resistance for 15% bonus damage resistance when near 3 or more enemies. Next, to boost up our melee damage, we'll slot in the Spark of Feedback to increase our outgoing melee damage by 75% for 5 seconds whenever we receive melee damage from enemies. In slot number 3, we'll look to add the Spark of Shock to make our arc grenades apply Jolt on hit, nice for even more damage on tankier targets and for stunning overload champions. Finally, in slot 4, we'll add the Spark of Frequency, which not only increases your weapon stability and reload speed upon scoring a melee hit, but also doubles all instances of Bolt Charge stack acquisition while amplified. Now, while unfortunately this does not apply to the stacks awarded by Storm's Keep's Barricade cast or passively accrued stacks, it does double all of the stacks that we receive simply by dealing weapon damage while already in possession of Bolt Charge, effectively doubling the number of Bolt Charge lightning strikes we are dishing out. As far as armor mods go, we'll kick things off on the helmet with a Siphon mod matching the element of our primary ammo weapon for Orb of Power generation on weapon multi-kills, along with a hands-on mod for bonus super energy gains on powered melee final blows, applicable to both Thunderclap and any basic melee final blow while in possession of the knockout buff. If energy permits, you can run 2 of these if you would like. On the gloves, you'll look to fill all 3 slots with a copy of Heavy Handed to generate orbs of power on powered melee final blows, similarly activating on both Thunderclap final blows and basic melee final blows while in possession of the knockout buff. The reason we run 3 copies of this mod is because the frequency of which we can activate Heavy Handed is determined by how many copies of the mod we have equipped, with 1 copy allowing us to generate an orb through these methods every 10 seconds, 2 copies allowing generation every 5 seconds, meaning meaning that with 3 copies, every single melee final blow spits out an orb of power. Down on the chest, I simply recommend a concussive dampener mod in conjunction with whatever elemental resistances best suit the enemies that you are currently fighting. On the boots, you'll slot in a scavenger mod for bonus ammo on brick pickups, as well as a surge mod for bonus weapon damage while armor charged from orb of power pickup, both matching the element of your heavy ammo weapon of choice. If energy permits, you'll also want to lock in an innervation mod for grenade energy refund on orb of power pickup as well. Finally, on the class item, you'll slot in a copy of Reaper for orb of power generation on weapon final blows after class ability activation, powerful attraction to collect all nearby orbs on class ability activation, and a copy of Bomber for grenade energy regeneration, of course, also on class ability activation. And while not necessary or essential to this build at all, this episode does have some episodic artifact mods that do pair extremely nicely with this build, most notably Defibrillating Blast, which grants a 55 HP heal anytime you trigger bolt charge damage. Now, if you want to make life super easy on yourself and get right to playing with this build, you can reference it anytime using the Mobalytics written guide link down in the description, which also includes a Destiny item manager link that you can use to equip every single thing in this build to your Guardian in just one click. And if you found this build and video helpful, then please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons while you're down there to not only support my channel, but to also catch future meta builds. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.